So I've always assumed that the AR app stores would be more or less similar to the app stores that we have today. So you search for an app that you need, download, sits on your home screen, and you use it whenever you need it. Recently, I read an article called What Makes AR Special, and that really made me think. I came to realize that actually it might look very different in the app stores. So in this video, what I'll do is I'll talk about 3 questions. Number 1's like, what will the content app store ecosystem look like? And number 2, where will those content be placed? For the apps today, we have it all in our home screens. What will be the equivalent for the AR era? And number 3 would be what this means for developers. What's the most important skill for us to have, in my opinion? And I don't think it's coding, and I'll tell you why at the end. So let's jump straight into number 1. What will the content ecosystem look like? So one of the things that he talks about in the article is that traditionally people, when they think of the metaverse, they think of a literal one-to-one mapping. Everything on the internet, everything digital will have a corresponding location in the real world, so that we'll experience that in the real world in relevant context. So let's all go on for a trip to Paris. So we landed in the airport, took a taxi, got near the Eiffel Tower, and now we're a bit hungry and we want to find some food. Remember, this is the AR era, so I have the glasses on. So when I click on the food app or whatever that would be, all the digital overlays for all the restaurants would start popping up. And that would be a huge mess. And when I start walking by each restaurant, I'll see like all the reviews by all the users overlaid. And this will be like information overload. Too much for you to process with your brain. And that is not a good user experience. What he argues is the fewer things that you see in this AR world, the better. A few things that are very relevant to you and not someone else. If you research Facebook's Project Aria, their true AR glasses, you can see that's one of their key highlights, contextual information overlaid. So now the question becomes, how will they get that context? These devices would need to know way more about us as people than traditional apps do today. There's the field called neuromarketing, where you could be looking at different things on the web stores, say Amazon store, and if you really like a product, without you even saying it or writing it down, the signals decoded from your brain could be relevant biomarkers for your intent to buy that, your interest in that, and people could use that to suggest products that are most relevant for you and that you would be interested in. So things like eye tracking or neural tracking, which is a more direct interface like neuromarketing. All these biometric sensors placed in some part of the glasses could help get really personal information from the user. So again, going back to the restaurant example, now you have these glasses, they got these eye tracking sensors, maybe some ear EEG to detect your neural responses. So this has the capability to know when you looked at something and when you liked it. So now you're walking down this restaurant and the intelligent AI has already gathered from your previous history that you liked Indian food, because when you looked at a poster of an Indian food, your signals gave clear signs of liking to that product. So the AI tracked that information and kept it in record to know that you like Indian food. So now that when you're walking down the restaurants in Paris, it will just highlight the Indian foods nearby. This kind of moves us to the second question. Where would these apps be located? So in the smartphones today, we have all the apps that we download cluttered onto our screens. We swipe right for the next homepage and it's page 2, page 3, a lot of apps, and many of them you never use, probably just 3 or 4 of them that you use regularly. In the AR world, instead of waking up in the morning, taking up a phone, looking at homepage 1, 2, 3, 4 to consume whatever you need, in the AR world, you wake up and your screen 1 would be, say, your room. The alarm app that you need might be placed on your desk. Calendar might be placed on the walls. The weather app might be placed on your windows. And then you move on to screen 2, say, which may be in your toilet. And screen 3 might be in your office. Screen 4 might be somewhere else. Everything is spilled out into different locations in the real world. That's what's going to be different in the AR era. Now finally, I want to talk about what this will mean for developers like us. What will be the skill that will be most valuable? In my opinion, it won't be coding. Of course, coding would be important to build the base and everything. So to understand this, think about the time when we moved houses, right? So we get really attached to our rooms. We like the fact that the TV is placed at this place. We like the fact that our beds are placed a certain way. We like the fact that our pictures on the walls are all at specific locations. Kind of become attached to those experiences because it becomes part of our daily life, not simply a screen that you swipe up and down. Naturally, when you switch rooms or switch homes, there's a high switching cost, right? Think about that. Now let's think about the AR era. In the AR era, because every physical object will have its own locations or apps there, would have way more power to form emotional ties with the user. And this is because it's not a phone app, right? We are 3D creatures, we're not 2D creatures. And what that means for a user, there will be a high switching cost to go from one experience or one app to another app that is the same thing. And the switching cost would be much higher in my opinion than it would be for switching apps, an alarm app in your phone. And that's because, again, 3D, real world, part of our lives. 2D, not so much. And what that means for developers is that I think the most important skill to have to make apps that provides real value and real engagement and real tie to the user is the skill of user experience design. User experience and user interface. And this would be a completely new field with lots of experimentations to be done. So far, everything we design for an app is designed for 2D screens, but for AR and VR, it's going to be in the real world. So an entire new set of user experience standards needs to be developed. And there will be a lot of innovation here. And that would be, in my opinion, the key skill to learn and master.